Today's trainer connection is going to be about icebreakers and openers from a social distance. So something we've been dealing with is having to do trainings in a very different way. We currently have a very adapted version of face-to-face trainings available to us as trainers, and we've been doing a lot in the virtual environment. So what we wanted to focus on today was doing some work in the area of looking at icebreakers and openers and how they can be adapted to suit us in that. So I'm going to click over to menti.com, which is a data visualization situation here. And you can set yourself up with a free account if you would like to access that. And all right, so I'm trying something new with this data presentation, and I'm using the dots format. So here we've got the question, what are you hoping to get out of today's event? And then we've got 7 folks have ID'd that they need and want COVID safe opener and icebreaker ideas. 3 folks ready to connect with fellow trainers and learn something. 1 person said, I've got something to share. And a couple of people in here by accident. Who are we? Yeah, well, who are you, accident people? Maybe we need to get you over into another training. Where's training room B? So yeah, so as I was saying, the Mentimeter piece here is a free account situation that you can get set up. And so using this question as an opener to a training is a good way to have people engage with some of the training content, interact with some technology, and give you a little bit of needs assessment information about the group of people you're working with. So seeing that I've got 2 people here that are maybe here by accident, then we might want to help get them routed to the right place. So, and I'm always all about the joke, so that's what brought that one on. So if you haven't used Mentimeter before, I'm going to take us back into the nuts and bolts of this thing to see a little better. So when you have a Mentimeter account, the free account, you can log in and get to a home page where it will show you, here's the presentations you've created, here's a new folder you can create to store them, or you can begin a new project. So here are the 2 that I've got logged into my account. And so I click back into the one we were using today, and it gives you a little preview of what the screen's going to look like. And then over here on the right, you've got the type, content, and customize. So when you're starting off, you've got a blank screen there, and it asks you information that it wants to know. So the main thing I wanted to show you here was these question types. So you've got a multiple choice and a word cloud and open-ended and question and answer, ranking, scales. And so you can mess around with those different formats to see what they look like and decide which ones you want to use.
Saying that every time you try to get on this, and I think it's because he's on it.
All right, somebody need some help? All right. Okay, so then you can go down and decide what kind of slide you want to have with a heading or a paragraph or bullets. And then there's some advanced question options down here that you can get into. Now, some of these features, they scale them so where they'll show them to you, and then you can't access them unless you get a paid account. So just be careful when you're working with that to watch that. But so here's the content, and this is where I typed in my question. So here's the question I typed in, and then it said, give us how many options you want for your participants to answer. So here you can see I typed in the first box to need, want, connect with, share, stumbled, all that, and you can have as many options as you'd like. You can even add in an image. And then here's where I selected the dots, because I wanted to see what that would look like. So that gives us a number of dots in a cluster based on how many people have answered the question. So you could also look at that as a bar graph, or see that as a donut, or look at it as a pie, different kind of options to show the data based on how you're wanting to use it. You can also let people choose to answer more than once. And do some segmentation. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but there's some, it's a pretty easy template to interact with and format here. I'll show you under the customize. You can close voting, hide instructions, and look at different layouts and do things like that. So that's just a quick little walk through Mentimeter, which is a free service that you can use to do different questioning and data visualization pieces. So any questions about Mentimeter before we move on? Has anybody used Mentimeter in a different way than we've used it here that would want to share about that with us? All right. So if you think of something, just drop it in the chat or unmute yourself. And actually, if it's later on in the talk, just drop it in the chat and then we can circle back to it at the end. So now that we've finished our Mentimeter exploration and discussion, we'll move on to what we are going to talk about today. So as I said in my introduction, we want to look at two different activities, the icebreakers and the openers. So we wanted to start off with helping us define those. So you can see the icebreaker is an activity that helps participants get to know each other, have fun, and feel more comfortable being together. So it's something you do on the front end of your training to help loosen people up and help them connect with each other. And then another version of that is to do something that we call an opener, which has basically the same goals of helping you get to know each other, have fun, and feel more comfortable. But then it adds a layer to it by embedding this activity in the training content so that at the same time people are connecting, you're also prepping their brain for the training by getting it thinking about the training content. So you can start anchoring to what they have in their memories and experiences about the training content and make that brain more ready to learn when it comes to that time. So the opener and icebreaker are pretty much the same, but you do get an additional bonus, some extra muscle and oomph if you can embed that in your training content. And so you got those two activities, and then what I wanted to guide you to down here is the latest version of the Healthy at Work guidelines, that if you're going to be doing a face-to-face training, these are the guidelines you're going to have to follow to have it be safe in these COVID-19 times. So that there's a link right there that you can type in and go to see some of the state guidance there. But what I pulled out of that is for those of us doing any face-to-face training, the main considerations you'll want to think about from these Healthy at Work guidelines are the fact that people will be wearing masks. You will need to engage in social distancing, not have any sharing of materials between participants, and that you'll be needing to eliminate some common surface contact where these germs can be spread from one to another in there. So those are the main things, looking at those guidelines, that you need to keep at the forefront of your mind as you're getting ready to do an in-person training. So what we want to do when we get into our breakout rooms is you're going to get about 15 minutes. And what we want to do is have you going to be in groups of 4 or 5 and use these discussion prompts where you're going to look at if you have brought any effective openers and icebreakers that are already healthy at work or COVID safe or work in a virtual setting. Share about those and discuss them with your group. Or if you have something you use that's not suitable for a virtual setting or under the Healthy at Work guidance, then we can talk about adapting that a little bit. What would you need to do to make that compliant? If you don't have any training ideas at all and really are stuck in that regard, then you could talk about what kinds of rules of thumb would you want to articulate or write or kind of get down if you were seeking to help someone take an activity and adapt it. To support you in the discussion, I do have 2 additional slides, which I hope you've already taken a look at, but if not, we'll check them right now. But each of them has 2 different icebreakers or openers on them. So if you need something to anchor to for your discussion, you can look at these. These are some pretty simple and easy to do activities that happen in a face-to-face training. And so hopefully that will help you with your discussion as you get into the breakout rooms and be able to engage about this material. And then when you come back, we'll take some time to debrief, where we'll talk about your takeaways, questions, reactions, etc., through a variety of methods there. So before Bethany opens up the breakout rooms, does anybody have any questions about what we're going to do or need to check in about anything? All right. So Bethany, whenever you're ready, go ahead and launch them into those breakout rooms.
All right, I'm gonna launch it now.
Cool.
And Breakout Rooms will be ending soon, so resumed recording of the trainer connection. Hans, you're muted again. But there were a couple people who joined in right before we went to Breakout Rooms or after. So I'm going to put a different link to the Jamboard. I found another one as well. So that if you hadn't previously been able to access the Jamboard, check the chat box now and check that link and see if it will let you into the Jamboard with the link that I just now put in.
All right, so that means anybody having trouble with the Jamboard, take a peek into the chat for a new link. If you have been able to see the Jamboard, you're cool. No worries. All right, am I sharing my screen now?
Not yet.
I don't know if I am. All right, so let's get that back going. Share screen. And bam. Okay, so now, does everybody see our discussion prompt Jamboard slide? You all can give me a nod or a thumbs up. Okay. So what we'd like to do is take a few minutes right now to talk about what went down in our breakout rooms. So if you see at the bottom there, where it says when we return, if anybody has a takeaway or a reaction or a thought or a question based on their discussion, we would love to hear that. There's some different ways you can interact that way. We have the chat window where you're able to type something in. That would be a great place to put something. Or if you want to try to put a sticky note on our board here, if you're get to your Jamboard tab and click on the sticky note icon. It's a little square with a pulled up corner, and it will open up a window that allows you to start typing in. And if you look at the different color options there, I think, Bethany, am I right that this little dealio down here are some color-coded choose your sticky based on your type of response at all?
No, I just put that as a cute graphic for today. So you do not have to color code your responses. If you want to, you can, but you don't have to.
All right, that's good. So if you want to drop a sticky note on the Jamboard, it will show up here on this screen that I'm sharing with everybody once it kind of processes through. But I'd love to take a few minutes here and let's discuss some things that we talked about or dig into some questions. And I've got some training coach support looking at the chat for me as I'm watching the Jamboard slide here. And take a moment to think. And oh, also, if you just want to unmute and talk, that would be a good option too. So you can sticky note, chat, or unmute and say something. And there's a sticky to remind you about what we're doing. Breakout room takeaways. All right, so someone got some good ideas on how to take my icebreaker and work it in the virtual environment. Yes, that's exactly what we wanted people to be able to achieve here. All right, anything coming up in the chat?
I had a very quiet group in my breakout room today, but we did have some good conversation on games that we have played that would adapt well to online.
Okay, could you give us an example?
Well, everybody, someone in the group had played the game, a baseball type game, where you move to bases as you answer the questions, and so your game that you did in your coach meeting last week with the wheel was also mentioned. One of your team members was in my group.
Yeah, so that's I use something called wheelofnames.com, and if you haven't used that before, it's a free website, so it's peppered with ads and stuff. But basically, you get a big Wheel of Fortune wheel, and you can type into a data field what you want each of the items on the wheel to be. So you can play like a spinner game using this wheel of names, and then when it lands on something, confetti flies up, and that can be a pretty fun interactive game, and you fill in using your content there. All right, so there it is, online baseball and wheel of names on our sticky. So what's going to happen is when we get done with this discussion, when we load this content online for people to look at later, all of these stickies are going to be up here, and I'm going to get a screenshot of this slide so that you'll be able to read these things that are written down in here for the future. And a picture of each of the slides will be available there. All right, I'm going to resize this a bit so we can read this sticky. So we have a would you rather and 3 things about me. Choose 3 items and how do they describe you. Both would adapt well to virtual situations. So would somebody who was in that group discussion be willing to talk a little bit more about the technical aspects of that? Or telling me about would you rather. I don't think I can recall what that is.
You talking about the baseball game?
Well, there's a pink slide that talks about would you rather, and then another game it talks about is 3 things about me.
This is Melanie Cox. I did the would you rather, and I've used that in person, and I thought about how I might use that. Basically, you challenge the participants with a statement. Would you rather be at the beach right now or the mountains? Or would you rather, eat sushi or spaghetti? Whatever. It doesn't really matter. But it gets them talking about themselves, and it's just a personal choice. So That way, you get to know a little bit about people that you might not know.
I know my daughter used that in her NTI, and I thought that was very interesting. Her teacher, she's in 5th grade, and I was like, really? That's a good idea.
Yeah, and it's one that can be done totally verbally and have a way to get people, it's a choice. They have to pick one or the other, and that makes for an easy, you can pick the answer there and then talk about what side of it that you fall on. So, yeah.
And you could add a physical element to that. Since Zoom calls sometimes have multiple people on the screen, you could say, would you rather be at the beach? Put your hand on your head. Would you rather be at the ocean? Put your hand under your chin, or,
Oh, yeah.
So people could kind of visually see what's going on too.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I was in our group. We talked about a similar item to the 3 things about me, and where they asked people in advance to bring something to the session, a token or some physical object that represents something they're thankful for or grateful for, and they were able to hold them up and talk about them and share with the group about those items that they had brought, and tell each other a little bit about themselves and what they're grateful for. And I thought that was a pretty interesting one too.
That was similar to what Jennifer put in the chat as well, Hans. Choosing 3 items and their surroundings on the desk with them. Exactly. And describe how each of them describe something about themselves.
Yeah. So 3 truths and a lie. Who dropped that bad boy on there? Can you give us some details on that one? Or did you write it because you didn't want to talk? And here's me calling you out.
Hans, this is April. It came from our group, and I've used it before. I wasn't the one who actually brought it up in the group, but 3 truths and a lie, where you just you're going to say things, and obviously it works in a group that's not really familiar with them. So if you're training with all your coworkers and you know each other real well, this is probably not the activity to use, but where you just kind of tell a few things about yourself, and the people have to decide which one is the lie.
Got it.
I've done that too. It was fun.
Yeah, cool. All right, anything else? All right, so I see the pink one about pickerwheel.com, another random wheel you can use to create your own with content. Yeah, that's usually there's so many different options of these free sites to do wheel of names. Pickerwheel.com, random.org has some dice rolling things that you can do in the virtual setting. We've got lots of really good options for ourselves. Did anybody come up with any questions or things they want to know more about based on their discussions?
Hans, this is Bambi. We just have people who are still nervous about virtual and the healthy at work. And so if you want to address a couple of those things, that might be helpful.
So nervous about virtual,
yeah, like doing trainings virtual. They've still not done much training since COVID hit because either they're not tech savvy. I did talk a little bit about the online community does have the rest of our trainer connections on there if they're looking for some help with some of those, but that was some of the questions that we had.
So what suggestions would people have here from our group if someone were nervous about designing a virtual training? How could someone help ease that nervousness to be able to try to do a virtual training? Anybody have any suggestions?
I have a couple suggestions because I do not like virtual and I never thought I would move to virtual, but I've been forced to do it. So my advice is to collaborate with other people that you work with and take advantage of the people that are more tech savvy. When I'm doing online meetings, whether it be Zoom or training, I always have a partner with me to help with the tech side of it. So I can be presenting my material and my tech savvy coworker can handle the breakout rooms, make sure things are getting recorded, saving my chat, all of that good stuff. And I would say just go ahead and get started. I think people are very forgiving and give you grace if everything doesn't go perfectly the first couple of times, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be with it. So those are the things that have helped me the most. And now I do them several times a week. So it does get easier.
Thanks, Curly. That's really great. And, you know, a resource all of you credential trainers have is your regional training coach. So if you wanted to have a conversation with your coach about, okay, I want to do an online training, I have no idea how to even get started, I think that could be a really helpful first step to take. If you didn't feel like engaging or talking about it, you might want to just go take some online trainings, take some different online trainings from different places and look at the types of things that are done in those trainings to see if you think, oh, that's something that might work for a training I would want to do, or this is a really good interactive way to do something, and how could I figure out how to do this myself? You might get some ideas by taking a training and not just completing the content, but paying attention to how things are delivered and what platform is used and how are you presenting information and responding to information and that kind of thing.
I'm going to second that. Hans is my training coach, and before my first training, we did a practice training together, and he was able to go through and really help me problem solve some things that I would have had a hard time with. And the other thing is expect something to go wrong, because it does. One of the things I've learned is to tell people to make sure their phone is handy. And so if your computer goes down, you can get on with your phone. If you are in a group where people know each other, make sure you have each other's phone numbers, so that I've had people who've called other people and just listened on from the other person's computer. And things happen. Phones ring, kids cry. I had a group where the power went out and I had 6 people with no computers. So they got on phones and called a colleague, and that's how we did it. And it was probably only about 30 minutes into a 2-hour training. So
Well, that's great. Thank you, Monica, for sharing those experiences with us. Anybody else have anything else they want to add before we move on? All right, so well, thanks for that. And all right, so here's the next slide that has two, you're welcome to steal these activities to use for yourself in any way. 3 things in mystery word that are good openers or icebreakers. And oh, there's a Kahoot. That's one that needs to go back on our other slide. Who would the Kahoot sticky dropper be willing to share with us about Kahoot and what that does?
It's just a kind of like you can pre-put your answers in, but then people have to, they have a certain amount of seconds to answer, and it's usually a color of a shape, and it's really fun.
So like a quizzing.
And it totals up people's scores, and
oh,
then
yeah.
You have a first place, second place, third place, things of that nature. But it's real fun, and I've seen it used in a lot of virtual training.
Yeah, that sounds fun. And if it does all the scoring and ranking, then that cuts away what the trainer has to do in the middle of all that. So that
Yes.
sounds pretty slick. So
Just go to Kahoot.com.
Yeah, well, maybe that's something we can do a future trainer connections on, using Kahoot and exploring some of that stuff.
I do a lot of game shows too, but we'll do that. We'll talk about that another time.
Right. Yeah, we need to get you to host that one for us. You and I are going to talk later. All right.
I have a question. In person, I usually bring lots and lots of materials to share and demonstrate. And how do you do that on a virtual? I tried to actually make my phone my co-host and video so that they could see it, and it just kept closing out. When so any ideas on?
So what types of things were you wanting to demonstrate?
Materials. So the training was kindergarten readiness.
Okay.
And I had all kinds of games and activities that typically I would let participants go up and pick up and share and talk about how they use them. But since they were all laid out on my kitchen table, I wasn't, and when I tried to just hold one up, it didn't really show how to do it, the purpose, all that.
Right. So are these things that are like store-bought preschool materials or household items? What kinds of things are you talking about?
Mostly household items or games that I have made, like, for example, one is a rhyme box, and it's just a little suitcase with toys in it that rhyme. And so that one was an easier one. The ones that were harder was, I have a game called Slap It, and when you find the letter you're looking for, you hit it with a fly swatter on the bulletin board. And those were trickier.
Yeah.
It may work better to set up an environment before the training to where you can use your phone and record a short video of it, and then just embed that video into your training. So that way you're still showing the material, but that part of it may not be live. It's just a taped video, but that way you can make sure you've got a clean background so you can clearly see the items. You've got good lighting, and you're using the phone just to video, so you can make sure you're close enough and have good angles.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
And
Monica, I have another suggestion too. I had done trainings in the past that were face-to-face, and I would maybe get a household item. And I was thinking this would be a fun opener, that if you just choose a household item and then you just hold it up, and everyone could type in the chat box a way that you could use it with children. So I don't know if you get, I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head. Well, let's just say that you just randomly pick up like a bag of blocks. Well, obviously you can build with them, but ask the participants, what else could you do with these blocks? And then you'll have a whole list of activities that you can do with the blocks, everything from tracing to sorting to whatever, making patterns. That would be a fun opener.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I like that.
And one disclaimer with virtual backgrounds in Zoom, they are great unless you're showing something live, because then it can kind of be hard to see because the camera grays it out because of the virtual background. So if you are trying to show something live, if at all possible, I would turn off any virtual backgrounds that the individual sharing is using.
Okay.
And something I thought of, Monica, is if you made a list in advance of things for them to have at where they're sitting to do your training, household items, and you would say, pick it up and hold it, move it, like let them experience it themselves, and then discuss what that does for young children. You know, that may be a way, if they are truly household items that, you know, everybody might have. Are these people at home? Are they like at their school zooming in? What's their?
Both.
Both, yeah. So, you know, it could be something where with some prep work, they could gather some things and have them at hand and then do some kind of experiential work with their own materials right then and there.
I like that. Thank you. These are all very helpful.
Yeah, good, nice question right at the close, Monica. You got some good stuff.
And if you are doing, I don't know, I didn't listen all the details about the rhyme box, but if you're doing a training for like one center, if it's an activity that they could do hands-on, if it's a way that you could even just send a document to like the director, and then she could print out the rhymes and cut them up for them, and then they could, whatever your instructions are, they could be doing it on their end, and you could still guide them through it with your materials, but then that way it would give them a way to have some hands-on stuff, even in a virtual setting, without you mailing things or having multiple contacts and things like that.
You're good. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a safe drive home. Hope you don't get a paper cut or strain a ligament clicking out of here.